I'm Pamela Waldrop Shaw. I'm an Executive National Sales Director, and I'm here to tell my why story. And I hope that something I have to share is both an encouragement and a blessing. I started my business in 1986 while I was teaching high school English and dance. I was working about 90 hours a week. I became a sales director in 1987. Had a couple of offspring directors right behind me. They quit and went away, and so I had to make a decision about pursuing, moving forward, building my business for real or quitting. And thankfully, I made the best choice. I was always dreaming of doing the million because as soon as I made the decision to stay in, I knew that I needed to be around the women who were achieving and taking on the opportunity for everything that it was worth. And I wanted to be in that circle. So my national area has been in the Diamond Circle 9 times, in the prestigious Inner Circle 6 times, with the highest at the $350,000 level. I have some pretty awesome women in my space. So grateful. When I was a kid, I dreamed more about qualities, about the way I wanted to feel and the way I wanted to be, the person I wanted to be. I didn't dream so much in terms of what career I would do or what I was even good at. I knew that I wanted to find a way to live with balance and priorities in my life, that I wanted people better than me around me because I knew I would grow that way. We lived a really modest, low middle class American kind of life, but very, very happy, very grounded, very balanced. There were 3 children, my older sister, my younger brother. I'm a middle child. My father was my elementary school principal, and my mother was my high school home economics teacher. I didn't get in very much trouble that way, as you can imagine. I grew up in what I thought at the time was a normal home, only to find out that it was extraordinary. My parents did not allow us to have a television when we were children. So we were really encouraged to read and write and play games and have conversation, and I'm so grateful for that. Going to college, I was aware that other people lived differently, and that turning point really made me appreciate my parents and what they sacrificed and how hard they worked to provide for us that stable family life. I learned by listening to other people that I was good with people. And so the way I interpreted that, of course, in those young years is that I wasn't smart. That is not true. I did graduate with a really nice GPA. But I say that to share that I really built a lot of insecurities in my own mind, but I did learn how to play to my strengths. And so I interviewed through our placement service, and this man named Mr. Van Arsdale kept asking me to come back to interview with him. And he said, "We have a female principal. She would love you. I just know you would really enjoy Fort Lauderdale." And I said, "What did you say?" And he said, "Yeah, Broward County is Fort Lauderdale." Well, I was going to Fort Lauderdale. I was so excited. I told my dad, I called him, "Dad, I have a job. I'm going to be teaching high school English and dance in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Coral Springs, Florida." And he said, "That's great. What are you going to earn?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't know. I had no idea." So I looked, I'm thinking it has to be enough, because why would you go to college and get a job that requires a degree and it wouldn't be enough? So I looked, and it was $11,500 for the year. I went straight to the beach, looked for an efficiency, because you go to Florida, you want to live on the beach. And of course there was no apartment, no efficiency that I could afford on my salary. We would always meet up on Saturday morning at the beach. So we would have papers to grade, and that was kind of our deal. Well, one morning, Libby didn't show up. Finally, she comes tripping across the sand, and she had on a skirt, and she was so excited. It was the most excited I'd seen her ever. And she came over to tell us that she had been to a Mary Kay party, and I wondered why they hadn't invited me. I mean, I didn't want to go, but when you're left out, you wonder why you hadn't been invited. And so she proceeded to tell us that she had become a new Mary Kay beauty consultant. Well, I couldn't believe it. It didn't fit with Libby or her age or our age or anything about that, but she was all in. She was so serious about it. And she basically threatened us to please come to her awards event because she was going to be getting a ribbon for being a star consultant. And her director started calling our apartment. We called her Happy Nancy. She would call, and it was almost in song, "Hello, Is Libby there? She was this beautiful redhead, sophisticated, smooth, lovely, genuine, and she ran the meeting. Nancy somehow just landed in my face. I think directors have this magical way of being in the front of the room and then being in the back of the room, and that's where she was. And she grabbed me and in a nice way and said, Libby tells me she thinks you would be great in Mary Kay. And she said, what? I said, oh, no. I love my job. And it was probably the first real bold-faced lie that I'd ever told. I did love my kids. I did love teaching, but I did not love the career of education. And Nancy said, yes, and she also tells me that you're an intelligent woman. And I said, well, thanks. And she said, as an intelligent woman, I know you'd never make a decision yes or no without hearing all the facts. Is there any reason why we couldn't get together? I was like, you got to be kidding me. She did not just do that. And so, long story short, I met with her the next day, and she was so genuine about who I am and who I was and what I was interested in and what did I want in my life and what did I need in my life, and could she show me how to get what I needed through the Mary Kay opportunity, and if she could match that up, would I be interested? And so I walked out of there. I had $125 in my Broward School's checking account, and I wrote a check that day for $89.25. It was April 30th, and I would not get paid again until the 15th of the month. And so I will never forget the feeling of getting in my car thinking, what have I done? There was something inside of me that captivated me just enough for just long enough to stick around for just long enough until Mary Kay could get inside of me. I wore pink. It's all I knew to do right. I was just sweating. I was so nervous. Probably 3 hours later, I had in my little money bag over $450 of products they had purchased in spite of myself. And so I decided that I must be a natural at this business. And so I was ready to go. I sold product all summer long. I went back to school that August. I remember thinking, I want to speak, I want to teach, I want to write. I don't want to be here. When you know in your spirit it's time to pivot and God's giving you every direction in the world and you don't take it, what comes behind that is usually a life lesson or two or three. And so that year was probably one of the most difficult years of my life. Happy Nancy called me every week. She wrote me postcards every week. Could I come to the meeting? Would I come to the meeting? She believed in me, and I kept thinking, I am not going to do, what is she thinking? And so she called me in October and said, you've got to come with us to Tampa, Florida. And it was the first time I had seen a national sales director. And I was enamored with her. I was in awe. I listened to her story. She was also a former school teacher. And she was everything that I was not, but thought in my life that I might become. So after the event was over, of course, I stood in line and waited to talk to her. And I introduced myself and started telling her all the reasons that I could never become a sales director because of my schedule and blah, blah, blah. She grabbed my face. Pam Waldrop, you're just afraid. Well, I'd never had anybody talk to me like that. I mean, she was like looking into my soul. You're just afraid. And I thought, who does she think she is? And so I went back and I started thinking about it. I thought, well, I'll write her a letter. I'll explain more thoroughly why I can't do this. I don't know what I was thinking. I wrote her a letter. And it was pages of a letter. All the reasons I couldn't do it, but that I wanted to do it and blah, blah, blah. She wrote me back. And her letter of you can do it went on my mirror, my bathroom mirror, along with my own lipstick, 3 + 3 + 300. 3 parties a week plus 3 team building interviews a week plus $300 in new sales a week was a formula that if week in, week out, it could produce the activity to earn the use of a career card, to build a team, to build a unit. And that's what I was focused on. So I put myself in the position of setting a goal to become a sales director. And that was October. November, I thought about it a lot. I talked about it a lot. I told people about it a lot. I didn't hold any parties. December, I thought about it a lot, but I didn't hold any parties. And before I went home for Christmas to Kentucky, Nancy called and said, if you really want to do this, you need to let me know. And I said, I promise you, when I come back in January, I'm going to do this. So I went home, long drive home, 18 hours, long drive back, 18 hours. I called Nancy as soon as I got back, and she said, what's on your date book? And I said, nothing. And in her very soft yet firm, no nonsense, New England style leadership, she pretty much read me the riot act. And then I got on the phone and I started booking. And I booked and I booked and I booked. And I booked her to hold team building interviews with me in her Cadillac. And I called her back and we went to work. She was really hands-on. I would never have learned the skills of the business had she not put me in her car and taken me to the next place. Really, we need never lose sight of the personal touch, because that is a difference maker, especially when it comes to coaching your next leader. My new principal was not excited at all that I was leaving. My students were so sad that I was leaving. Getting in my car and realizing, it's still emotional to this day, it really is, that I would never see them again. I knew that I was closing a door that had been not only my career, but also what my parents had done. And I was forging into Mary Kay territory that I had no idea really how I would do, how I would succeed. I was just committed to take the next best step. But on that day, it was a real step of faith to get in my car and drive away and finish DIQ, which I did.
My newest debuting director, who is also on target for her Cadillac, the beautiful Pam Waldrop.
So I attended my first seminar as brand new sales director. It was a really important time. It was also, in a way, it was a lonelier time. I didn't have the structure around me of the school. There wasn't the same level of people and celebration around me, so I had to recreate that. Of course, it's not hard to create celebration in Mary Kay. The biggest thing that I had to figure out was how to structure my day and be in charge of it in a way that it would be productive. I kept a spiral notebook. Here's what I'm going to earn. Here's how much of that's going to go away. I invested so much personal time and money in recorded messages. Okay, so they were cassette tapes. I had a recorder at my makeup mirror. I had a recorder on my treadmill. I had a recorder in my car. Wherever I was that I was trapped doing something else, I was listening to a message. And I constantly listened to the people who were where I wanted to go. And I would listen to one message over and over and over and over. I wanted to hear how she would think. I wanted to hear what she said in different situations. I wanted to hear how she would respond. I wanted to hear what her philosophies were, where her wisdom was coming in, where she stood on her faith. I would listen to some of the same messages forever. It usually is someone's inspiration, life story, celebration, motivation, their success. There's something about the way they do it that you connect to. And it takes all kinds of people to attract different ones of us. And so I certainly sought out my mentors that way. The Kathy Halloos, the Debbie Moores, the Pam Tolls, who really just lit a fire of excitement under my own desire. But you have to have the discipline to turn on the voice, to turn up the message, and to pay attention. I still love listening to messages. Mary Kay used to say, you can do this without a husband, and you can do this with a husband, but you'll have a challenging time doing this against a husband. Fortunately, Jerry was all on board. He saw the opportunity. He saw what could happen for my business and how that would benefit our family. We got married in November of '91, and we took our very first top sales director trip that next fall. And so from the time I got married, it was my first trip, our first trip together, and we took trips around the world from that point on and built our friendships, the friendships that we really came to just know and love and do life with. I had the goal to do million from the very beginning. I never abandoned it. I'm someone who, once I see the goal, it doesn't have to happen this year. I just have to make progress towards it next year. That is Mary Kay Ash sashing me on stage as $1 million director. I love that. So that year that we finished the first million, it was just such an exciting year. And I realized I thought too small because my goal was to do the million, and we did $1,250,000. And I realized that if I had thought just a little bit bigger, or if I had been more competitive at that time, then I would not have let somebody else be number one. And then I set the goal to have a number one unit. And the reason I wanted a number one unit is that I wanted to honor my parents on stage. Thomas was 2, and my parents flew to Dallas, and Thomas ran around on the stage and picked up the confetti on the floor, and he'd bring me a pink one. Mom, here's a pink one.
Oh, Thomas, thank you so much.
The company will laugh at this because I've probably talked for 45 minutes, and I'm not kidding. It's embarrassing to think about today because I know the time constraints, but I had so much I wanted to say. And so I honored my parents.
I love you, Mother.
My heart takes a picture of that so many times. I drew words and phrases on a manila folder for 3 years prior to that of things that I wanted to say to them. So I'd been thinking for days and days and years about that moment. And yeah. I'm so glad that I didn't wait. And I think that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for on my journey is that I didn't let a lot of delay sit in between the next accomplishment, thinking that there would be a better time, an easier time, a more fruitful time. I'm grateful that I really pushed, that what was on my heart, I really pushed to accomplish that. That is one of the most special evenings ever, with my family on that stage, with my unit on the front row, and with so many victories within our unit for our people. It was just a really sweet time. It's not just about building a successful business for a rank on the scoreboard or your name and applause or where you stand on seminar stage or where you get to travel. This is my life. It's the only life I'll have. And so the way I live it is much more important than my rank on the scoreboard. I have to design that life. I have to decide how I want to live that life. Time invested in one area is time away from another. So you have to be very careful with your yes and very careful with your no, because to live intentionally is really the only way that you will live without regrets. There are little regrets here and there in life, but on the big scheme of things, the big decisions, I don't have regrets because I really look back and see how pushing for those benchmarks of success, I was also pushing against a timetable that I didn't know about. So one of those unwelcome circumstances is that we lost my husband, Jerry, to Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, December 2nd, 2006. He was, well, I call him Superman because he played college football. He was a triathlete. He was bigger than life, literally. In May, in the spring, his speech slurred. And at first, he didn't even notice it, but it was a noticeable speech slur to me. So we went on the NSD trip, and our friends noticed it. So we came back and we started looking for, what could this possibly be? MRIs, CAT scans, is it a brain tumor? Is that what's causing the speech slur? And in my mind, I don't know why, because I really didn't know much about ALS, but in my mind, I just kept thinking, surely this isn't ALS. He's so strong. We made decisions about how we would live. At that time and still today, there is no known cure for ALS. Most people know about ALS through an ice bucket challenge. That's pretty much what most people know about it. It's a motor neuron disease, and it gradually and slowly disconnects the motor neuron communication. All of your muscles eventually stop. He loved the computer. He loved being able to create. It wasn't long before he couldn't use his fingers at all. Yeah. And the same became true eventually of his legs, but really just right before he died. It was hard for Thomas. Everybody came. Bowling Green was full of pink Cadillacs and love and support, and it was unbelievable. And I think that my family was just so comforted that in addition to their love and support, which was generous and overflowing and still is, that I had a Mary Kay family that was phenomenal. The life that Jerry and I had built, I would now be managing alone, including raising a son. And puberty is it's no joke. I don't remember it being that difficult for me, but there are a lot of things that cannot replace. A dad. Thomas is working out his own story, and he's amazing and brilliant and talented and charming, and he was born at Seminar, and he's been on stage at Seminar, and he was on Seminar when I debuted as a national sales director, and he's been my MC since Jerry died at Seminar. I would love when he would sit in Seminar on the very last day and hear the top 3 sales directors speak, because their voices into his head, his heart, their stories of overcoming, what they've done in their lives, what they've overcome in their lives, it's all in there. The last 10 years has been a lot about grief and addiction and learning how to overcome those, since I really didn't invite either one of them into my family. Addiction. No parent wants a child to lose a parent. And the last thing you want to do is to create excuses for your child when things are challenging or things are difficult. You want to create normals for your children so that there's safety. There's a safety net. And so with Thomas, by his permission, I talk about his addiction. The hole that was in his heart from losing Jerry was not one that I could fix. His addiction was with alcohol. And I didn't know anything about alcoholism. The thing that I'm grateful for is that I had resources to support Thomas at a time and with the right kind of help. And I'm also grateful for my Mary Kay family, who was not judgmental and who also love him and who have been there for us to walk through this. And so to be able to give back, to be able to be a voice of hope and encouragement to another mother or to a daughter or to anyone who's struggling on that journey, there is hope. With grief, what I learned in watching other people is that other people are going through grief and they don't even know it. You plan your life this way and this is the way it's going to go, and then you lose it, or you lose someone, or you lose something, and grief is the emotion that follows that. And I feel very blessed because in my grief, people gave me space. People gave me compassion and understanding. You do have to come back in and create new normal. I believe I'll see him again. And so that gives me a lot of confidence to not just sit around and moan and cry and wait and feel sorry for myself. I've done that, but I won't let myself stay there. And my friends won't let me stay there. And I'm grateful that I can now be that friend to other people in real grief and obvious loss, and also other grief that's not obvious loss. I lost Jerry, and then I lost Nancy, and then, of course, recently lost Barbara. You know, for each of us, there is a last day. And I think that grief and the loss has really given me a quickened spirit and daily mindset to think, I don't want this day to get past me without really living it well, without living it fully. Success is the accumulation of small, private, daily choices when nobody's watching. It's not what we do on stage that is the success. It's the hard choice. It's the disciplined choice. It's the I don't feel like it today choice. So really, it's the accumulation of those days, day after day after day after day, of doing the private thing, that discipline, that activity that builds success when you make those choices day after day after day, that time accumulates. And that's what brings an outcome or result. But so does failure. Failure is the absence of doing those same things over time because you don't feel like it. It's not a good time. You got interrupted. I don't have to wait for success at the end of today. I just have to know, what does a winning day today look like? And that's what I will operate in. If I can define 2 or 3 wins today and again tomorrow and again next week, then it's going to accumulate. I have to trust that. And it does. It's not just conversation. It's not just a soundbite. It is an actual practice. So I'll put my design book together and put my 6 most list together and what I'm going to delegate, who I'm going to call, who I'm going to write. I have a little yellow sticky pad and it starts at 5 a.m. It ends at 10 p.m. So I'll schedule it half hour at a time and work really hard to stick to that. I don't know if I've ever had a perfect day like that follows without any interruption. But you can't live a perfect day until you know what it looks like. So I go to the trouble of deciding every day what a perfect day tomorrow is going to look like and give it my best. For me, focusing on how many hours do I work in a day, are you kidding me? I get to live the life that I dream of. Actually, I get to live a life that I couldn't have dreamt of as a child because I didn't have any template for this life. So to be able to work as much as it takes to get the job done, to be able to live with the flexibility and the friends and the people that are a part of my life because of Mary Kay. I am so grateful and blessed to have so many specific Mary Kay Ash stories, from riding with her on a bus through Italy to sitting with her at breakfast in London to going to see shows in New York. It was at New Sales Director Week, and we went to her house. She baked us cookies. Her dog Gigi was there. I stood in line to meet her, and I was rehearsing in my own mind what I would say. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the Cadillac I'm going through. I want to be sure and thank her. And she took my hand and, double cupped it, and I looked into her eyes, and I started weeping. I couldn't say anything. I was like, thank you for the Cadillac, and thank you. And she's like, honey, you're going to be a great director. And she took my business card and she wrote on my business card, Pamela, see you at the top, Mary Kay. I've kept it forever. I laminated it. I've put it in every date book that I've had since. I did not think I was going to be like, oh, Mary Kay. When she came out on stage at seminar, there was just something so exceptional about her. Her authentic, genuine love for her company and the sales force. Once again, I found myself crying, and I was overcome by that emotion, because for one person to exude such personal power in an others-focused way, it was that she was so genuinely flipped in her focus on other people. She really projected a desire for us to take the opportunity and to succeed with it in our own lives. And you can't fake that, and you can't bottle that. And we were all gathered around her just like little girls. And the last thing that I remember her saying that day is, I just want to ask you to pass it on. I just want you to pass it on. And we left that day, and then in February she had her stroke and never spoke again. So again, I feel so grateful that I seized the opportunity when I could, in the window of time that I did, because I got to know Mary Kay Ash. I want to be remembered as someone who lived authentically and honestly and all out. I want to be remembered as someone who stood on her faith in hard times, who adjusted and pivoted when life was less than perfect, who was honest and vulnerable in loss and grief and disappointment, but who continued to give and encourage and inspire and champion other people's successes beyond mine.